All right, so welcome back to Therapy Wise. And today I have a very special guest with me, my good friend, Jessica Lee. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica.
Thank you for having me, Jenny. I'm so excited to do this.
I know I cannot wait for however this all unfolds. And so I first wanted to say, so Jessica and I met, we were in a group together and we got to know each other. And then I think, Jessica, you knew a little bit more about me. I didn't actually realize how much we had in common until we had known each other for quite a long time. And I realized, oh, you were also, a regulated health professional and you had sold a business. And, we had so many things that were so similar, and more similarities kept coming to the forefront as we got to know each other more. And I also want to say that you have helped me to interpret dreams and explore various things that we'll be talking about in the episode today. And it has been so fascinating. You are so gifted at it. So I first wanted to let all the listeners know that. And I just would love to have you just tell us a little bit about you and kind of who you are personally and professionally, like where you've come from, so they can sort of get to know you a little bit before we dive into some more juicy topics.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenny, for those kind words. And I definitely felt the same when we were going through the group together and your path was unfolding, that I noticed like so many similarities too. And you're like really activating for me. Your priestess powers are off the charts. We're very activating.
Thank
So,
you.
for a little bit about me, I had always been interested in healing, and when I was younger and going to college, I thought it would either be like medical school or something else, and I found chiropractic and started my practice in 2012 in San Diego, and I built that and became like very satisfied with what I had built and just felt that I felt the call to move on. And so sold that practice and moved to Washington, where I live now. And through the last few years, I have gone through quite a spiritual awakening and a lot of growth and expansion. And then I followed my breadcrumbs and I found dream interpretation and channeling. And I feel very, very called to that and have been helping people with that ever since.
Beautiful. So I want to start with your chiropractic training and experience there. So, did you start to experience some of your spiritual gifts unlocking and showing themselves as you were working in that more traditional type of job?
Yes, I did. And that's like a really, really good question. Of course, Jennie Ward would ask this question. The I noticed that I would become like really in tune with my patients and with what was going on in the office. I could tell sometimes what someone was feeling because when they walked into the office or walked into the room with me, I would sometimes feel pain, just pain I wasn't having or sensations I wasn't having before until they walked into the room. And then I noticed I was like, I'm actually experiencing in my body what my patients are experiencing. And I would ask them and about it. I would feel like a pain in my hip or in my head. And I would ask them, like, hey, are you feeling this? And they oftentimes they would respond and say, yes, how did you know that? And so that's kind of when
Excellent
I
question,
started
right?
to clue in. Yes, such a good question, of course. So that's when I started to notice. I was like, there's something there.
So, did you find that your patients were open to, the fact that you were sharing this? Like, were they interested in your intuitive sense there, or were they fairly closed off by that?
We actually never really dove too deep into that. I would just notice that about myself, but I didn't really understand at the time where it was coming from. I just thought that I was like, oh, I'm just really in tune with my patients. I
Mhm.
never really thought of it as like um, something like spirit related or like a spiritual gifting, which I understand now totally is, but I wasn't as, I guess, aware of it back then as I am now.
So one of the things that we have in common is that, we definitely have a training in, the science-based aspects of healing, the chiropractic world, the psychology world, but also this deep connection with spirituality. And so if you could, design it however you would love to design it, how do you think melding and merging chiropractic care with spirituality might be helpful for a client?
That's a really good question. When I was in practice, I would speak to my patients a lot about how your inner world creates your outer world. And if you let your inner world get away with you and you don't practice, like, let's say emotional hygiene or, spiritual hygiene, and you feed yourself, just like you feed your body food and you exercise and you cater to it, you take care of it physically, we have emotional and energetic needs too. And I would actually address those things with my patients and let them know that if if internally we are holding a lot of things in, we have a lifestyle that is like very, very stressful, I can see it manifest in their physical symptoms, and it will show on like their some of the tests that I would routinely do each time a person would come in, like it would show up on the scanner that I would use, and I would be able to see like, hey, your scan is actually really wild today. Like, what's going on? Are you stressed out? And then they would, in turn, reflect back to me like what was going on with them. And oftentimes I would have to address with them that if if we don't take care of ourselves emotionally, spiritually, energetically in some way, it can affect our health and it can impede their healing. And oftentimes I would see that.
Interesting. So your calling toward where you're at right now, probably when you were selling your company a few years ago, you maybe weren't aware of what you're aware of now in terms of your spiritual gifts and all of that that's been opening up. Would you say that's correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So when you were moving out of owning your company and selling your chiropractic clinic, what do you think now, like looking back, what do you think was happening there? Like, what do you think was some of the contributing factors that you might not have even realized at the time?
Can you repeat that question?
So looking back to the time when you were selling your company, I'm sure you had like certain reasons why you decided to sell. But I wonder if now, you've started to have these unlocking and this unfolding of these spiritual gifts, you could probably look back at that unfolding and see, oh, there were things happening, there were things in the works that you didn't know then, but you can see them playing out now. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. The it was um it was more like not feeling fulfilled, feeling called away from the practice, where I started to realize that this isn't turning out what I expected it to. I thought I would be practicing for forever. And I kind of hit like a wall in terms of like how fulfilling practice was. It, I had great, like reached a point of like great satisfaction and fulfillment with it. And I felt at a time like I I don't feel like I'm meant to be doing this anymore. I feel like I'm meant to be doing more. And I realize now that being a chiropractor was only using a subset of my spiritual gifting, which now I understand there is a lot more that I'm meant to use to help people. And part of my gifting is the being a hands-on healer. And chiropractic is literally using your hands to heal others. Chiro means hands. And so I had been using that skill set, but because I wasn't using the whole gifting the way that I am meant to in this life, it led to dissatisfaction and it led to, feeling like I'm meant to be doing more and feeling called away from the practice. So that's why I sold it. And now I understand why um, doing more dream interpretation and channeling for people that there's so much that I wasn't using that I was meant to use. And now I'm on that path.
I love that story. And really what I was wanting to dig at was the fact that you actually sold the company without really knowing what was coming next. And I think that that is often so challenging for people to, we often have to let go of something and leap before we know what is coming next. And your story is such a profound example of that, that you leaped. And when I met you, you were in the void state of really being uncertain as to what the next unfolding of your path was going to be. And it became, in my opinion, clear very quickly what that was going to be. But you really didn't know that when you made that very profound choice. And you left a company that was successful, financially successful. It was something you'd spent, over a decade training in and growing the business. It was actually using some of your healing skills. So I think there are so many people that would have thought, there's probably not anything better than this that would be available to me, but you were willing to take that leap and do that. So I just wanted to just applaud you for that, because I think most people might have let their fear run the show there.
Thank you. Yes, it was really scary, and I did get pushback from a lot of colleagues. I got pushback from family. I even got pushback from like other professionals, other licensed professionals, and some people did think that it was like a waste of a license and all of the time and study that had gone into getting your license, going to post grad school and all that education. But when when the writing is on the wall and you feel it, it's so apparent, then that staying in that position just doesn't serve anybody anymore. And I found another chiropractor who we became fast friends. She was such an amazing fit for the practice. I knew that she was sent by spirit and that she was meant to be. She was very aligned, and she had that passion and the energy that I didn't have anymore, and I thought that she would be such a great fit, and she was. Turns out that she was. And yes, the diving into the unknown and the void was really scary. And it actually, after I sold my practice and moved, I went through some of the darkest, hardest years of my life, struggling with a marriage that wasn't working anymore. And even with that, I had to let that go and step into the unknown as well. So by the time you met me, I was completely in the void and not knowing what the heck was going to happen next, what was coming for me. But that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because when so many things that I used, so many relationships or like identities that I used to define myself by were gone, then it allowed actually space for me to hear what spirit actually wanted me to hear and to finally be able to receive.
Yes. So let's dig into the gifts that have been unfolding and showing themselves to you. So I imagine, would you say that the channeling and the dream interpretation, would you say that they kind of go hand in hand, or would you say they're sort of separate skill sets that you have embodied?
They definitely need to go hand in hand, and the 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 schooling that I'm going through to learn more about dream interpretation, it requires you to learn to channel. And in order, you need to talk to spirit and channel spirit in order to get an accurate reading for the dreamer. And sometimes when dream symbols show up, they can mean several different things.
Mhm.
So you need to channel to put it together, put the whole message together in order to give the person an accurate dream interpretation. So they do go hand in hand.
Interesting. I really noticed that when you have interpreted my dreams, it's not this cookie cutter, oh, I am reading from a book that trucks equal this, you're asking me questions and you're exploring in depth, the meaning that underlies certain symbology that has come out in the dream. And it's just such a fascinating process to be a part of. So I would love for you to speak on how dreams are communicating to us aspects of our subconscious that we're not aware of. Can you explore that a little bit for the listeners?
Absolutely. Our dreams are like a treasure trove of information. They're put together by our spirit guides, but also our higher self. And nobody knows you better than your higher self. So every night's dreams are a message from your higher self and your spirit guides who know you the best. And your your dreams will always show you what you can work on at this moment in time. They never show you what um, you don't need to work on. Uh, and they will show you things that you are most often are not conscious of. It's in your subconscious, things like it could be childhood trauma, it could be things related with your career or related to your health. It can be related to your relationships or your children, or so on and so forth. Like you mentioned the truck, right? You've had a dream with a truck in it. And in dream time, the symbol of a truck can either mean it can either represent dad or it can represent your career. So it's very interesting. And I had to look at the rest of the dream and put that truck into context in order to interpret your dream for you.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of what it's like. And all these messages come from your higher self directly, which is so amazing, because um, it's like you are your own therapist,
Mhm.
and your dreams really don't hold back. They can be brutally honest, sometimes a little more honest than the dreamer would like, but you know, that is what your higher self and your spirit guides have your best interests at heart and your highest good at heart, and they won't hold back the
Yeah.
way that like a friend who really loves you won't hold back and will tell you the honest truth.
I love that. Yes, that truck dream, I was like, huh, really? It's certain things that I'm pretty self-aware, but it was, I didn't recognize that, yet it also rang true that, oh, that message that came through, it is absolutely the truth for me, but I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. It wasn't something that I was at the forefront of my consciousness, but the dream brought it through.
Absolutely. The dreams kind of give you a spin on what it is that you need to know at this moment and will paint it in a certain light so that you get like a like a perception of it that you never really thought of before, or you absolutely had no clue was there. Like a lot of a lot of my dreams have alerted me to like thought patterns or the way that I view, let's say, women in a certain way that was not serving to me. And I had no idea that these subconscious patterns were there, but they, as we know, these programs and this conditioning that we receive when we are so young in childhood really run the show. And don't, if you aren't aware of it, if you don't know that they're there, it doesn't mean that they're not there, running the show and kind of driving your behavior and your thought patterns.
So interesting. So, if someone was just beginning to connect in with their dream life, what would be some initial steps that they could start to take to start to recognize and perhaps even start to interpret some of their dreams?
Yes, the it's so common for me to hear from people when I tell them that I interpret dreams, for them to say, "Oh, I haven't dreamt in a really long time," or "I haven't remembered a dream in so long." And then after they meet me, their dreams get activated
Yeah.
and they start dreaming like crazy. And that's when I tell them like write down your dreams, have either a notebook or however you like to jot things down. I like to do it digitally on my phone because it's like faster and I can also dictate when I'm like half asleep in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
Having a way to record your dreams, like having a notebook by your bedside is really helpful. I would say like just being aware that, oh, okay, like I can actually receive messages from my higher self through my dreams, and they can help me navigate any challenges that I need to navigate right now, or know what's holding me back. And so being aware of that even is just a really good start. And then also setting the intention to remember your dreams is a really, really good start to working with your dreams and working with your higher self and your spirit guides to actually utilize your dreams to help you rather than it be, um, you know, we're taught that dreams are kind of like random things that happen at night when we sleep and random brain activity that doesn't necessarily mean anything, or it's a way for your brain to process what happened during the day. And that I learned is totally not true. And that your
Interesting.
dreams can really help you. Yeah.
So is it the case that they are never helping you process what you've been through during the day, or that's just not always the case?
There are some dreams that will just be for that day. And sometimes dreams have like a shelf life, like they what was relevant to you a month ago that your dream showed you may not actually be relevant to you now. Sometimes they do, and then sometimes your dreams are very repetitive. You can have like recurring dreams.
Mm.
And I've met several people who have had this one recurring dream that has followed them through many, many years of their life. And they, they wonder what it means. So it just depends. It can be a very case by case basis. And that's what's so fascinating about dream time is that it can be anything under the sun. And it's just what is relevant to this particular dreamer at this point. That's that's what your dreams will focus on.
Right. Yeah. I think it's often the case that things aren't, always this or always that, but, they have to be, that's where, nuance lies, and the channeling comes into play where you can channel from spirit the message that is meant to be received from a certain dream.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I would love for you to speak on the cutting ties process that you have been through in the last, I guess, number of months of your life. And it's been a very intensive experience for you. And I'd love for you to share what that is and kind of how it's helped you in your life.
Yes. I recently went through a about an 8 to 9 week program that was focused on utilizing my dreams and dream interpretation to remove the negative influences from a particular parent that the dreams will focus on. So for each dreamer going through this program, it was a focus on removing negative influence from a particular parent from childhood. And more often than not, for each dreamer, it's usually mom who shows up because mom has such a deep connection with her child because she is the one who bears the child. And even when we are, developing in the womb, our soul can pick up so many things from our environment. It can sense things it can hear in the womb. And so depending on each soul's journey, we pick up different things when we are very, very young and can make decisions for ourselves based off of what we experience from mom and dad. And then these programs can actually get set in place at a very, very young age. And by the time we're like 2 or 3, these these programs are already set in place. The walls are up. We've already made decisions about what life is going to be like, and that drives our behavior and thought patterns, and what we create in our lives for many, many years. So for me, when I was going through this cutting of the ties, and I just want to clarify that I know the name sounds pretty terrible. Like it sounds like, oh, I'm like cutting the ties with my mom and I will never talk to her again. No, that's not anything of what it was about. It was about cutting the attachments, removing these negative influences, negative programs that we had set in place when I was really little. Um, Removing those because these programs and these subconscious patterns hold me back. They color all my relationships with women and my own femininity, and being able to remove these negative influences would allowed me to expand, to come into a place of really deep, deep healing, not just for this life, but actually it turned out to be for past lives as well. And to be able to just like be more open-hearted, more loving, more accepting, more balanced in terms of having your feminine and masculine energies balanced and so on and so forth. So it was a very, very transformative few weeks. It was intense. There was a lot of pain and a lot of old pains and traumas come up, but becoming aware of those things and becoming aware of like, oh gosh, like I never knew that all of this lying under the surface, it was kind of nuts. And to be able to become aware of that because of my dreams and to finally let them go, I actually experienced pretty powerful transformation in my female relationships, like with my friends, with my family, with my sister. So it
Beautiful.
was nuts. It was wild.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about. So, sometimes we enter into healing and, it's because of pain, right? And so for you, your pain was very hidden. It was very like deep. You can see now how it was playing out in your life, but it wasn't an obvious source of pain. And now you can see, okay, my life has changed because of this process. So you've already, tell me more about like what you see that is different about you now that you've gone through this experience.
The thing that I noticed the most was a return to my true nature, a return to like your like a reclamation of of my like feminine power and a return to like sovereignty and being able to just really your own all your traumas and own all your patterns, and you know that they're you know where you come from and what you've been through, and to be able to come into a place of just like so much deeper acceptance and love of yourself. Like you really see yourself and you really learn to hold space for yourself and you understand, oh, this is why I behave in this way. And it's because of this wounding with mom. And because I experienced that and I understand it now, thanks to my dreams, I totally have my back and I totally have um understanding and compassion for the way that I am. And so when you show up like that, you show up with more connection to yourself, more acceptance for yourself and love for yourself. You are more you less guarding of your heart and more open-heartedness and willingness to share and just like be in touch with your emotions, your traumas, yourself. Showing up like that in the world, automatically you draw out that frequency from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea that you are the one who goes first. You're the one who shows up with a different vibration. And with the exact same person, you can draw out and attract a totally different vibration from them, even though you've had many, many, many years of this certain experience with them. But as soon as I changed my frequency, and I had a very different experience of who they were, the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And like for example, my sister. And so we were able to have like a really uh open moment of like very deep honesty of things that we were really afraid of or that we were holding very close to our hearts, and we both showed up in a really vulnerable and honest space. And I never thought that I would experience that from my sister or let alone like with her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of like the most amazing transformations I had ever experienced, and so quickly, having completed the 8 to 9 weeks of the program. So
Right. What a beautiful example. And I have definitely experienced that too, where not necessarily in the same way with the cutting ties process, but just personal healing. And then you interact with someone again, someone that you've interacted with, thousands of times before, but the interaction is different. And the connection has shifted because of the healing process. And it's such a powerful thing.
yes, it can be very profound, and it like this example with my sister, I had no clue. I had no clue that that would happen. I never thought that we would be able to have that kind of conversation and deep connection in my entire life. I just never thought it was possible. So now realizing that, you know, I I'm the one who creates that frequency because I show up in a different frequency. So what else can I create with the people around me or the opportunities around me? How now do I want to show up? And what do I want to create from that? It's really exciting.
It is. It really makes me think of, are you familiar with Tim Ferriss? He wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, and he's written a number of other books. And so one of his more recent books was called Tools of Titans. And it's a ginormous book. Like it's, 1,000 pages long, I think, but it's little chapters, very short chapters from people who are very successful that he knows. And he asks them basically, like, what are the best messages that you have received or that you would like to share with the world about personal growth or health or development, whatever, anything related to, doing well in the world. And the one chapter that stood out to me the most was from Gabrielle Reese, who was a professional volleyball player, beach volleyball player. And she said one of her biggest messages was, you go first. And it was that, don't wait for someone to say hello. Don't wait for someone to thank you first. You go first and start the ball rolling. And I remember reading that and thinking, that is such, it's such a simple thing, but such profound wisdom in that. And for me, as someone who is, naturally kind of a shy and quiet person, I noticed when I was reading that, like, I have the tendency to wait for someone else to go and then to respond. And so after reading that chapter, which was probably, 7 years ago, I started, okay, I'm going to purposefully go first and, reach out, say hello, say thank you first, ask for help first, or whatever it is. And that little snippet really changed my life. And so that, you spoke to that, that same message. So I find that really interesting.
Yes, it's so profound and yet it's so simple and yet so profound. Like you're totally right, but it's something that I I notice that I'm so conditioned to be reserved, to hold back, because, of decisions that we make, decisions that I had made when I was little of like, I'm gonna guard my heart. I don't want to get hurt. I play kind of like keep away, keep people at a distance, so that I don't get hurt. So I expect others to kind of put their foot forward first, be vulnerable first, or to create a safe environment for me first. And then I can open up, in that environment. And Spirit was like, no, 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 you go first. You're the one who can create the safe environment for yourself because you see yourself on a whole different level and you accept yourself on a whole different level. You love yourself and you have your back.
Yeah.
And that's the safety that you can create for yourself. And that actually that vibration that you carry, because you carry all these things for yourself, you do these things for yourself, you hold this space for yourself, you automatically draw that frequency out in other people and you create that safety that liberates them to then feel safe and to be themselves and so on and so forth. So that was a huge learning experience for me.
Mhm. Beautiful. So I would love to shift gears and speak a little bit about Mary Magdalene. So
Yes.
you and I both identify as being part of the Order of Magdalene, which are feminine healers who are connected with the teachings of Mary Magdalene, the frequency of Mary Magdalene. And so I would love to hear about your connection with her, perhaps about some of the experiences you have had with some channeled experiences with her, whatever you would like to speak on there.
Yes, it all started with my dreams. It was so funny. Like I had dreams earlier this year, and I could tell with the way that I was dreaming that my dreams they felt different. They were getting deeper. They were becoming more vivid. They were becoming easier and easier to remember, and they felt important. And so there were several dreams that I had around June of this year, maybe about May or June. And Mary Magdalene showed up in my dream, in these dreams actually. And I, the first one, I was looking for her, and I ran all around town and found her private estate. It's so funny. There's this like white gate and her initials on there. And I was like, oh, Mary Magdalene lives here. And so I hopped the fence and I broke into her house looking for her. And the dream ended there. But then there was a second dream where her and Yeshua actually were together. They were on a beach coming out of these like caves that were at the beach. So I remember her long her hair in this dream was red, and she pointed to inside the cave, and she was like, she pointed that she didn't say anything, but she and Yeshua were leaving to go to town. They were walking to the nearby town, and she pointed to inside the cave, and she was like, I left something for you in there, but without saying anything. So I was like, okay, well, I climbed in there, and then what was left for me was this like this fabric woven together. It almost looked like crocheted, and there were crystals. There were pink and white crystals woven together on this piece of fabric, and they were in the shape of carnations. And I woke up from that dream and I was like, why is Mary Magdalene appearing to me in my dreams? And so she started me on following all of these breadcrumbs. And you really helped me in activating that. And you were like, oh, have you heard of the Magdalene Order? And I was like, no. And I started doing research, and I went down the rabbit hole on the Order of Magdalene, and I discovered a woman. I think it was on the podcast Next Level Soul with Alex Ferrari, and he interviewed this lady called Wendy Rose Williams, who channels Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, as well as Yeshua. And so I watched both her interviews on that podcast, and I contacted her. I looked her up on her website, and I was like, oh my goodness, she has healing sessions. And part of that healing session, in her description, she mentioned a crystalline cave, which was exactly what I had dreamt about. Crystals in a cave, but she was talking about a crystalline cave. And I was like, I need to speak to this woman because Mary Magdalene has kind of brought me to this point. And so I contacted Wendy Rose Williams and had a few healing sessions with her. And she pointed me in the direction of dream interpretation. And that's how I found the school that I'm learning dream interpretation from at the moment. Isn't it wild?
I did not know the end of that story. I had heard all the way to, I remember, I think you had a few sessions with Wendy, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I heard after the first or just before the first, but I hadn't heard the outcome of all of them. So absolutely fascinating. So many synchronicities were unfolding for you, especially during that period of time when, I think spirit was trying to nudge you in these certain directions, and you were such an astute student and listening and just following everything that was coming up. And yeah, it's helped you to come to this place of just a perfect fit offering for your own gifting.
I have to tell you that you were instrumental in waking life. Like Mary Magdalene was directing me in my dream life, and then you in waking life were like initiating me almost with your high priestess powers. I swear to God, you're the best. And you really supported me in the journey of following Mary Magdalene and helping me to connect the dots. Without you, I don't think I would have been able to connect the dots like the way that you helped me. And um, even just mentioning the Order of Magdalene. And I did discover through my going down the rabbit hole and also meeting Wendy Rose Williams that I am part of the order as well. And I thought I was like, oh, this is it. My journey is complete. But nope.
Oh,
Nope, I
naive
had much
Jessica.
more to go. I know, yeah, yeah. Oh, little Jessica, little do you know. And so it was it's like with your support, I went through a remembering. I went through a remembering of myself on a soul level, not just on a human level. It was a remembering of, oh, I am part of the Order of Magdalene. Oh, I remember these things about my soul contract, like what I actually came here to do. And Mary Magdalene, just discovering that I'm part of the Order of Magdalene was just the beginning. And she further pointed me, through Wendy Rose Williams to the dream interpretation school that I'm a part of now. And the rest was history. As soon as I got my first dream interpreted, I knew this is what I am called to do. This is why chiropractic didn't quite work the way that I thought it was going to. But I feel like a very deep soul remembrance with doing this work. It feels like I've done this before and I've used this before, and I have in past lives after having healing sessions with Wendy Rose Williams and also Akashic Records readings. I learned that I actually have been a healer through many, many lives. I've worked on, let's say, like hands-on healing, dream interpretation. I've been an oracle, high priestess, and worked with like the gift of prophecy and things like that. But this life as Jessica Lee is the life where I get to put it all together, all the tools and the things that I've been working on throughout my past lives. I get to use it all and see what I can do here in this life.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It's such a wonderful unfolding. And even the chiro career, that was a wonderful experience, right? You got to learn how to connect with clients and run a business and, talk to people and meet with people and heal people. And so none of those skills are wasted. They were where you were at that point in this life experience. And then you felt and you knew deeply that you were meant for something else next. And now you're fully stepping into that. It's so beautiful to witness. And I saw, the kind of the you stepping into this in this lifetime. And immediately, we were all like, Jessica, how are you doing this so well? You just kind of began and you were like at the, elder level of skill, we'll say. So it was so obvious to me that this was a past life connection because, when you step into something and you're so good at it naturally right away, that's how your dream interpretation and channeling has been.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that reflection. Every time you reflect something back to me, I take that very seriously. And it's so funny that you mentioned um, that chiropractic wasn't a waste because I never thought that I would utilize those skills. But it's so funny because our dreams talk to us about health, about what we eat. Like no topic under the sun is like left, left out. Um, Dreams can oftentimes give us health warnings. It can They can reveal that, hey, actually this food item is actually not serving to you, and you actually have trouble digesting it, and it's backing up your digestive system. So being a former healthcare professional and having that training actually enables me to give a more informed dream interpretation to a person, especially when it has to do with health and dietary things that the dream is bringing up. Even in dreams, there are certain dream symbols for, let's say, the spine, like steps. The steps actually can represent the spine. And it's so funny, like the number of the step can actually correlate with the number of the vertebrae that the dream is talking about.
Wow.
And
And the
so
average person wouldn't know that, right?
yeah,
Because of your,
yes.
yeah, I do notice that in intuitive readings as well, where, messages come through in the ways that we would be able to interpret them. Because if a message comes through and it's like, meant for someone, let's say, a very niche area in Greece, well, I would have no idea what that means, right? So a message will come through and it's like, oh, that happened to me last week. This is relating to this topic, right? So it's speaking in our own language, and you have a very a breadth of wisdom in the realm of health and healing because of your chiropractic career. So I love that.
And it's so funny to reconnect with that through dream interpretation. I just never thought that it would unfold this way. But now I understand. I was like, oh, there was a reason that I was a chiropractor for a number of years.
Yeah, I bring that up partly because I know that that's come up for me, or people will say like, "Oh, do you feel like you wasted your time, not knowing what your highest calling was?" And I don't feel that at all, because you develop so many skills and abilities along the way, and you learn so many lessons that it's still very much serving me. Mine is very, it's quite direct. There's an obvious benefit in my sessions to being a psychologist, but I could definitely see yours as well. Like I just love that you can see that purpose unfolding even now.
Isn't it so funny how things work out?
It really is. So I would love for you to share with the listeners how they can connect with you and what you offer to people so they can reach out to you if they're interested in pursuing some of what you're doing.
I would love to support people with their dreams if they want to learn more about me right now. I'm more than happy to sit down with them and schedule a conversation or a consultation of sorts, just to for people to meet me, to ask questions, or even to talk about their dreams. But right now, it's still so new in terms of my um, supporting people with their dream interpretations. I haven't set anything up per se, but it's easy for people to reach out and email me, and then we can set up a call, and they can ask questions, meet me, get a feel for me, and then we can go from there.
Absolutely. I'll link your email below. And, some of my favorite healers that I have worked with are very like unknown. They're not necessarily like, they don't have a huge online presence. You know, they connect with people through word of mouth or recommendations from trusted others. And I feel like that is you right now. You know, you don't have a lot of online presence, but like people will be so fortunate to connect with you if they have any questions about dreams or dream interpretations. You know, now is the time before your schedule absolutely explodes with busyness.
I love that. Yes, I am so aware that that spirit wants me to work with people, and people just happen to find me. Um, they light up when I talk about when I tell them I interpret dreams. And now we're on this podcast together. Things are just unfolding in ways that I never thought possible. Like I wasn't even looking for it. And
Mm.
then boom, like I have all these people in front of me to interpret dreams for and support. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yes, it's such a gift. And it's been so wonderful having you on Therapy Wise today, Jessica. Thank you for coming. And I can't wait to share this with all the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Take care.
Bye.